Welcome back. Our next session is a chance for you to meet the expert on streamlining digital transformation and reducing data and process silos. Our expert is Vasu Rangadass from L7 Informatics, and they're a company focused on digitally transforming the information technology landscape in biologics. This session will get you thinking about how you can leverage the power of digital technologies to transform your processes. Enjoy.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in for this Meet the Expert session at Advanced Therapies Connect. In this session, I'm delighted to be joined by our friends at L7 Informatics to share with us their insights into how digital transformation is being applied to develop advanced therapy products today. As complexity increases in developing cell and gene therapies, it's really important for us to consider the silos that exist within and across the organizations in the development value chain. And L7 Informatics have enabled several life science companies to optimize their outcomes in this regard. I'm joined by Dr. Vasu Rangadass, the president and CEO of L7 Informatics. Previously, Dr. Rangadass was the chief strategy officer at Nant Health following its acquisition from NetOrange, the company he founded to provide an enterprise-wide platform to simplify and optimize the care delivery process in health systems. Prior to NetOrange, Vasu was the first employee of i2 Technologies, currently Blue Yonder, which later grew to be a global company that revolutionized the supply chain market through innovative approaches based on the principles of Six Sigma, operations research, and process optimization. As always, please submit your questions for Vasu, and we'll get through as many of them as we can at the end of the session. So, without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Vasu.
Thank you, Michael. Welcome everybody to this talk on streamlining digital transformation and reducing process silos in advanced therapies. And I'm Vasu Rangadass. I'm the CEO of L7 Informatics, and it's a pleasure to have this meeting today and discussing these strategies that we are created at L7. I wanted to start by talking about, what the problem is. In life sciences, organizations have a lot of data and process silos in the development of these advanced medicines. And while a lot of attention is being paid to, digitizing manufacturing and lab operations, it's important not to transition from existing paper silos to new digital silos. So in this talk, we talk about creating unified platforms as a way to digitalize research, clinical operations, manufacturing, and QC without creating new digital silos. And what are these new digital silos? There is a lot of interest to move from paper to digital, but people are buying a lot of siloed systems. For example, electronic lab notebooks, LIMS, electronic data capture, pharmacovigilance, CTMS systems, EDC systems, EBR systems, MES systems, and all these siloed systems are creating what I call as digital silos, but it's really not helping with the reduction of these silos. And so we're going to talk today about how our platform, the ESP, is going to help with this digitalization and digital transformation. So I want to define here the difference between digitization, which is converting paper to electronic, versus digitalization, which is true digital transformation. So it's not only digitizing data, but also transforming how workflows are automated and executed between departments in a company and across the value chain. So to set the stage for this, I'm going to describe to you where does this whole platform sit, or the digital transformation of operations sit in the context of the whole enterprise. And I use this framework from the International Society of Automation, where it talks about level 4 systems being your ERP systems, and level 3 is where all your operations are happening. And then level 2 and 1 is where all your integration and your instrumentation, your building management systems, your all your environmental monitoring, all of that is happening at that level. So the magenta layer, level 3, is where this digital transformation platform is sitting at. Now, what to digitalize in these advanced therapies? The core that we're trying to solve, the core problem is seamless collaboration. So we have a lot of operations and departments, but we want to make sure that not only is the information and the workflows between these inter-company departments happening in a seamless, collaborative way, but also between the company and across all the value chain partners like CROs, CDMOs, clinical sites, as well as lab partners. That entire value chain needs to be working in a seamless way. So again, just to summarize, breaking down silos between department and company, but also breaking down silos across company, because the advanced therapies market has got extremely complex supply chains, as we all know, because it's most of the time the drug product is being made for one single patient or a group of patients. So why digitalize? Just at a high level, I wanted to give you this framework, again, coming out of Germany, called Industry 4.0, where we talk about the advantages of digitalization. And the first step is having complete information visibility. The second step is connectivity, integrating all the different instruments and the department and the people and other software systems together. Visibility, what is happening, it'll give you complete transparency as to why things are happening, and predictability, what is going to happen, and self-optimization eventually once you plug in AI and machine learning. How can the system react and self-correct? So in order to do this, and this is another example of why to digitalize these organizations, the main point here being there's a lack of enterprise-wide platform for managing all these operations from research to FDA approval. So how to digitalize? So there's several different techniques for digitalization. And L7's ESP platform uses a primitive model, which was proposed by the Zachman framework many years ago. The primitive models essentially creates reusable software components that can be very closely and very rapidly assembled together to create software solutions. And this has been used in other industries like automotive and housing industries, and I'll explain to you how these things are built together. So for digitalization of operations in advanced therapeutics, we've created 8 different primitive models like data entities, process entities, connectors, apps, business intelligence and analytics, knowledge graphs, and core services, and then API services. And I will explain each of these primitives in greater detail. So data entity primitives are essentially things that are capturing, representing your business, things like studies, subjects, manufacturing sites, personnel, equipment, assets, material. ESP allows you to define all these data entities that define your business. And then you have the process primitives. Process primitives are the smallest unit of work or smallest unit of activity that you perform in your company or in a department. These process primitives are combined to create workflows that are combined to create workflow chains. So essentially, you're creating these process primitives, which are protocols that are reusable and then can be combined to create very complex operations and automate them. The next set is a connector primitive. These are to connect to different instrumentation, connect to different bioprocess equipment, connecting to different software systems, connecting to shipping companies like World Courier, FedEx. So these are all the connectors that will make sure that the data remains in a digital format, but at the same time, you have full digital transformation when you cross your company boundaries or you cross from software to instruments and equipment. The next piece of primitives are your app primitives. These are applications or windows into the platform that allows different roles to work on different spaces. For example, your research people might use ELN, your manufacturing folks might use the electronic batch record, your laboratory testing people might use LIMS, sample management might be used across the board. So these are different applications that make up and sit on top of the platform, much like your app sitting on top of your iOS operating system on your Apple phone. And then you have your analytic primitives, things like bioinformatics, AI, machine learning, SAS, R, and these are all part of the primitives that are used to automate and optimize your operations. And finally, the knowledge graph primitive, where you take all of the data that is collected within the platform and then link them in a way that it's easy to find and also generate new knowledge. So in summary, we're able to take all of these primitives and solve for larger problems. For example, I'm showing inside on the left-hand side a cancer manufacturing and a QC process. That was the complete automated workflow that was built using all of these primitives at one of our customers. And I'm going to give you a few case studies that in a little later. So in summary, the models of using primitives to build and automate and digitally transform your company is a very effective solution compared to buying composite models. For example, if you buy a LIMS or an ELN out of the box, which is a composite model, it's much more difficult to do digital transformation. Whereas a platform like ESP, which is more like Lego blocks, or like housing primitives like windows, doors, light bulbs, you can create infinite number of processes using this digital primitive model. So that's one of the main advantages of what ESP does. I'm going to go through some very quick case studies. One of our customers is Rangadass, which is making a cancer vaccine, and they're getting into phase 3 trials for ovarian cancer. And we have integrated all their instruments and equipment into the platform and completely automated the workflow. The workflow looks like this, just as an example. Everything from tissue receipt to manufacturing of vials is one integrated process, as opposed to having to buy an MES system, a QC LIMS system, an EBR system. It's one integrated process that completely digitally transforms their manufacturing process. Another example is from ARMI, which is funded by the US government, which is a regenerative manufacturing institute. And in this case, we're doing bioprinting and QC workflows for regenerative medicine. Again, we've taken a process and completely digitally transformed and automated the entire process for ARMI. And we have several more examples that we're working in, but those are the two case studies I wanted to cover today. So there are multiple architecture options to do digitalizations. So if you take a company that typically, most companies are in this state, you have an existing architecture, there's a lot of software and there's a lot of paper silos. So our approach is, the 3 different ways to do this. One is to use overlay systems. And the second approach is to use unified platforms. And the third approach is to use hybrid platforms. So in the overlay approach, ESP as a platform can sit as an overlay system on top of your existing platforms and then digitally transform the entire workflow and normalize all the data processes. In the second approach, which was actually quite nicely documented and researched by Gartner, is the approach of using unified platforms where you have common models, common tooling, common architecture, and instead of having these siloed systems like ELN and LIMS, you buy these unified platforms that have ELN and LIMS as apps on top of the platform. And ESP is one such platform. And that same applies for clinical trial management, Whereas you have all these different siloed systems like EDC, CTMS. A unified platform will allow you to better digitally transform your organization. And so essentially what ESP is we've taken all these point solutions and converted them as apps on top of a unified platform or an operating system, whatever you want to call it. And the third approach is a hybrid approach where you want to keep some of your legacy systems and you don't want to replace them. So it's a combination of an overlay system and a unified platform sitting on top of your existing systems. And one of the key things in digital transformation is roadmaps. You're not going to go from current state to end state in one big project. So we need to create roadmaps and a way to manage this technology strategy. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but there are very good books that describe these options for us. But essentially going from the as is to be, we need to create roadmaps. And roadmaps provide an opportunity and a framework to prioritize and look at what the business drivers are and then map them to information technology drivers. And so this is an important exercise to have the biggest return on investment in such projects. And these roadmaps allow you to trade off decisions in terms of cost and timing requirements. There's a lot of trade-offs to be done. So having this roadmap approach helps in designing a path without wasting a lot of money. And based on all the work that L7 has done over the past couple of years in creating the ESP platform with its primitive model concept, Gartner has selected us to be a cool vendor for 2020 in life sciences. We are one of 8 companies that were selected. So we're very proud of this, and you can also download a report at the l7informatics.com. So with that, I'm going to end this meeting and appreciate the time and looking forward to any questions and answers that may be. Thank you.
Thank you, Vasu, for those brilliant insights. And thank you, everyone, for watching. We do have some questions for you, Vasu, which I'd like to jump right into. We've still got a few more minutes. So, question here that I think will relate to a number of members of our community, and it's framed like this: I'm a small biotech with a limited budget. I've not even thought about digitalization. What is the case for an organization like me, early stage biotech, for making that switch? Can you talk about that a little bit, Vasu?
Yeah, sure. Michael, that's a very good question. And I think, and that's the power of a platform like ESP is you can build slowly over time. So for example, if you're a small biotech, you're focused on research operations, you can use one of the apps first, and then you can buy apps as you go and expand into clinical development, and then you expand into manufacturing and manufacturing QC, you can keep adding new applications. So it's a very modular system. So you can be sure from upfront that all of your data is going to be in one platform, and you have one process automation platform, and then you can buy apps as you go along, as you scale and as your company matures.
Great, thank you. And this question here, and I might just sort of add on to this question slightly as well, because I know that over the course of 2020, you've actually remotely, applied your technologies to a number of life science companies. The question we got here is really, how long does it take to apply one of your solutions from beginning to end? What's the sort of time frame?
That's a good question too, Michael. So our customers, buy multiple applications from us, and so there is a roadmap. So typically, to implement, for example, a manufacturing QC operations and completely digitally transform them is a 3 to 6 month effort. And then you have manufacturing, which might take another 3 to 6 months. And it's completely up to the customer in terms of how they want to implement this. Some customers prefer to implement it at QC first, some prefer to implement it in manufacturing and then do QC. Some of our customers are doing CTMS and clinical ops plus manufacturing and QC. So it really depends on the customer, but we typically implement what we call as business releases, so small chunks of functionality that take about 3 to 4 months to implement, and then we move to the next and next and so on.
Great, thank you. And I think we got time for one more question. And this question relates to when is it a realistic time to consider digitizing our workflow? Is there a time that's actually too early for a company to consider digitizing?
I think it is never too early to look at your IT infrastructure while starting up your biotech company. I think the longer you wait, the more rushed the decision process is, and that's when most people make mistakes and errors, and they start combining things together that don't really mix well, and that creates what I call as the Tower of Babel of IT systems that don't talk to each other. And that's what creates silos and slows down the information flow and throughout your enterprise. And it not only that, it slows down your entire product development life cycle. So it has tremendous impact if you make the IT decisions early on, so that you don't end up creating these digital silos and slow yourself down.
Thank you very much, Vasu. So yeah, that is pretty much all we've got time for now. I've really enjoyed that presentation. I hope everyone dialing in from home, lab, work, wherever you are has enjoyed that as well. We will also include the link to that report that you mentioned as well, Vasu, in the user dashboard for the conference too. So thank you ever so much, and thank you everyone for watching. Goodbye.
Very interesting indeed, Vasu, and thank you for facilitating the presentation, Michael. In a moment, we have another Meet the Expert session lined up, where this time we'll hear from WuXi Advanced Therapies, who'll be showcasing their AAV suspension platform. Don't go away.